On Thursday evening, the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago hosted a historical lecture entitled I in Iere Land, looking at the history of Rastafarianism in this country. Guest lecturer TYEHIMBA SALANDY gave an in-depth history of the emergence of the movement locally and also touched on one of the more controversial aspects of the religion, the use of marijuana. Janine Brown reports.
While Jamaica is credited as being the leader of the Rastafarian movement in the Caribbean, there was from its inception a sizable group of followers here in Trinidad and Tobago. The emergence of the Rastafari movement in this country began post-independence and was further stimulated by the Roaring '70s. The Black Power uprising further provided an environment which helped embolden black people in this country, challenging them to reject the ideologies imposed on them by their colonial masters and instead tell their own narrative, one that sees them as descendants of the Most High. Since its inception, the movement of Rastafari has been vilified by wider society, branded a movement for the uneducated and uncivilized. As university lecturer TYEHIMBA SALANDY explains, this vilification has far-reaching roots.
When persons reacted against the Rastafarians in the 1970s and 80s, they were not simply responding to what was in front of them, but they were simply enacting conditioning that had been actualized and put into motion since the journey of Columbus.
He says nonetheless, the community has championed through this persecution, forming a small but powerful sect to this day. According to Mr. Salandy, no conversation on Rastafarianism can be complete without addressing the controversial topic of marijuana. Pointing out that contrary to popular belief, ganja smoking is not all there is to being Rasta, Mr. Salandy says that the plan's criminalization still affects the community. He is chastising past governments for what he describes as their cowardly decision to criminalize the plant in the early 1960s.
While we have these marijuana eradication exercises that were going on, we had states within the United States experimenting and growing marijuana, so that now in certain states it is almost fully legalized.
This cowardice, he says, will put Trinidad and Tobago and by extension the Caribbean at a disadvantage if the plant is ever legalized locally, as it has been in several states in America.
We may have to import marijuana from the United States because they have been gathering all these strains and developing patents on various aspects of the marijuana.
Despite persecution which the members say they still face to this day, they hold fast to the dream of returning to Mother Africa before departing this earth to Zion, where they believe they will spend an eternity with His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. Janine Brown, C News.
Member of Parliament for Barataria Sawa, Dr. Fuad Khan, is making a call to legalize the use of medical marijuana in Trinidad and Tobago. In a social media post, the opposition MP said this country needs to join the march towards decriminalization of marijuana, particularly for medical use, noting that the celebration of 420, an international counter-culture holiday where people gather to celebrate and consume marijuana, has become a half celebration and half call to action. Dr. Khan renewed his call for the decriminalization of the use of marijuana. He said Trinidad and Tobago has some of the highest rates of cancer, hypertension and diabetes in the region, and if marijuana licenses are granted, the country can begin to benefit from the positive medical benefits. He said patients with epilepsy, diabetes, cancer, multiple sclerosis, irritable bowel syndrome, and other conditions will be able to have access to legal marijuana and not have the added burden of trying to evade law enforcement.